not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system. Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to this live stream. I'm starting it off a little bit earlier than I prepared it to, just so I make sure all the people that are planning to join in and tune in with the stream. Firstly, I want to thank you for joining in on a Sunday. I know you're probably not too keen on joining like educational live streams at the moment, but also I want to invite you to share the live stream with anyone who you'd think this might be useful for, like any of your architectural friends or your colleagues at work or university or anything like that. These renders were submitted on my email a few weeks ago when I made the previous live stream. So this is basically the second live stream on this channel where I'm reviewing your renders. I'm planning to do this like maybe monthly or bi-weekly or something like that, just to keep in touch with you guys. So if you want to submit your renders for the next time we do the live stream, you can submit them at info@scale3d.org, or you're gonna see the email pop up a bit later on the live stream. Some things that I want to check off the list before we get started. I want to make sure you're hearing me correctly. So if the audio is well, or if it's too loud or too low, just let me know in the chat. Other than that, with the renders that I received, obviously I don't know how much freedom you have on your design choices, so I'm not going to be judging of that too much unless it's something that really it really catches my eye. And if you send more than one render in the email, I chose the worst one. That way I have the most feedback I can give to you and the more things I can point out. And also as well, I cannot review all the renders in one live stream. That would be just too long and very uninteresting. So yeah. Also, one more thing, all the renders that were sent with logos, I will not review any of those next live stream. This live stream I made sure to crop them off, but please take off all your logos and all of like marketing that you're trying to do with the renders. So this is basically just for educational purposes only. I also want to share and invite you to send the renders over once you've implemented the advice or the feedback that I give on your renders, and I'll probably share that out in the social media soon, so I'll make sure to give you a shout out on that as well. Can anyone let me know in the chat if my audio is working correctly and everything is fine? One second. Let me just check 1 second and then we'll get started right into it. Alright, so I'm gonna get started with the first render. I'm gonna open that up in just a second. Alright, so with this screen, I think you can notice the email at the bottom of the banner. That's where you can submit your renders for the next live streams, and I'll be happy to review them with you on the next live stream, whenever that is. So for this render, obviously it's looking quite good, and it's very different from the last renders we received. Although it's looking good, I have a few things that I can point out. This render was sent over by Andrew Toms. The first thing that I noticed is that the car is catching too much of attention. I'm not sure if this is the main point that you wanted to focus on or if it is the house, but I'm more lenient that it would be the house, as renderings on Enscape are mostly used for architectural purposes. So the first thing is that the composition is very directly to the car, and I would like to make it more subtle. I know that DSL is a very beautiful car and it needs the attention it deserves, but for the sake of rendering and marketing purposes for architectural firms, I would keep the composition more focused on the building. Other than that, I think that if you still want to use this car, I think the tires look a bit fake and very not very defined. Um, the car material looks alright, the reflection, all of that. And also something that I would like to point out is that these exterior lights, if I'm not mistaken, I think you should turn them on with spotlights. It would give a cool effect as a pathway for where you'd be able to walk around the house, as well as interior lighting. It would give a warm mood on the inside, and it would also kind of spark a curiosity on the viewers as to what's inside the house as well. From what I can notice, the inside or the interior is not modeled at all. So I know it takes extra work to model the interior, but when you're taking exterior shots like this, it's not needed to be too detailed. The modeling doesn't need to be too detailed, and you can probably get away with it with just some basic modeling, and just make sure to put some interior lights as well to make the whole image more dynamic. Something else that I want to point out is that the background, obviously, I know this is probably an HDRI, and it just doesn't fit too much with the whole scene. I would do something with high resolution, since you can tell the difference between the Enscape grass and the HDRI grass, and the whole background is just too blurry. The sky matches well with the whole image though, so that's nice. Okay, so the mic volume up, yeah, I'll make sure I'll turn that up. Thank you very much, Mino. Hello, I have a question you may want to answer. Do you need a good graphics card to do a better looking rendering in Enscape? So this is something that I was wondering back when I was starting out 3-4 years ago. The graphics card helps to have better looking renders in terms of achieving higher quality or higher resolution, so your computer can handle it. But a higher graphics card doesn't make your renderings more realistic per se. Even though in Enscape, when you open up the visual settings tab, you have the rendering quality low, medium, high, and ultra. And obviously to use ultra, you will need a high performing graphics card, or at least a good ray tracing one. I still wouldn't say that a very good graphics card makes your renders more realistic. It just helps your computer to handle the rendering better. So yeah, that's that. Alright, so this is pretty much it for this render. I don't think I have anything else to say on this one. It's pretty good. I also received some other renders from the same person, but I chose to use this one because I thought it was a good way to start off the live stream. Alright, so also I tried to mix, just a disclaimer, I tried to mix the renderings between interior and exterior renderings. That way you can take as much information for both types of renderings. So this one was an interior render, and it looks like a dog care center or like a dog adoption center, something like that. It's refreshing to see something different in terms of interior rendering, because we usually see living rooms or any type of basic interior, and it's just interesting to see something else. First thing I can notice on this render is that the lighting is definitely off and just a bit boring or too bright. So I can tell you try to use fake lighting, which I always recommend to get higher quality images, but as I always say, if it's not used correctly, it can get you in trouble and it can just make the renderings a lot worse. Before I go into details with lighting, something else that I noticed immediately is that the field of view is too high, I think, for me, and also the composition of the image is not centered. So what I would do is just get kind of in the center of the room and just direct the camera all the way to this adjacent wall. And I'm not sure if you're using 2-point perspective. It looks like you are, so yeah, that's fine. That's completely fine. So So other than that, yeah, I'm gonna go back to your question in 1 minute. Uh, so the lighting looks to fade because there's hardly any shadows and the ceiling is just too bright. And the interior lighting doesn't match with the brightness of the sky in the exterior, and the sky in the exterior looks not that good as well. So what I would do is try to put some spotlights in the exterior and direct it into the interior, so that way the lighting has a good sense of direction, and then you can put some soft I guess spotlights from the top of the ceiling. Something else that I want to say regarding this render is also for the materials. I think that these doors should be metallic, so it doesn't look like the metallic option is turned on in the materials editor for the doors of the little houses of the dog. So yeah, also these animals, I know they're from the Enscape asset library. They kind of look artificially put here, so maybe if the dog was facing in another direction, or if the dog was having an interaction with the guy right here, it would make up a better storytelling for the whole render. Okay, so what was your question? Still wondering how you render in Enscape so realistic. My maximum effort to render with Enscape is like this picture on your stream. Well, I cannot tell directly what would exactly be the issue or what could increase the quality of renders, but I can take a more detailed look if you send me some of your renders in the email, as you can see on the screen right now in the bottom part of the screen, and I'll make sure to review them on the next stream whenever that is. So feel free to share your renders over there. Alright, so this is the next render. So this is another interior render as well. So this one is kind of, I'm not a fan of these kind of designs in general. I just think they're a bit too tacky, and obviously not trying to offend anyone or anything like that, but a design looks a bit third worldish. I myself live in a third world country, so that's totally fine to say, I guess. But if I'm not judging the design at all, there's a few things that I want to point out on this render. Let me get the markup, yeah. So first thing is that the field of view is too high on this one as well, and the composition is just not set correctly. You cannot see where the bed starts or ends, which is not the issue here. It's just that I think it would be better if the field of view would be lower, and then the camera angle would go a little bit further back on the room. Also, I think there's no shadows on this one at all, so there's no depth to this render. And I can see that there's a window over here, and then you can do the same thing as I said on the last render, where you put some spotlights in the exterior, and then the lighting comes in from the outside and just brightens up the whole room. What I can tell from this is that you've probably put some sphere lights or some type of lighting on the ceiling, and as you can see, it's not showing up very well because right here it just has a bad effect on the material and overall quality of the image. Also, the door is all the way to the edge, which I guess is not a mistake in itself. It's just very unusual, and it's just too it's not wide enough in my opinion. Maybe it is like this, it wasn't your choice or anything like that, but the door just looks out of place and not very good in context with the whole room. Something else that I would recommend is maybe putting a rug on the floor where you can just break the monotony of the flooring, and just a little bit on the sides of the bed at least. Something else is that I can see too much reflection on the floor. The reflections, I always say that the reflections are super important to get high realistic images, because every single material in real life reflects, and the materials just look too dull in the settings as of now. So yeah. In the meantime, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I'll be happy to answer all your questions, obviously if I can, to my best ability. Alright, so this was the third render that we had to review. Now we're gonna go on to the fourth one. So this render is actually probably the best render that I received so far, for many reasons. One, the modeling is quite well made, and it's just the lighting and the dynamic of the render is much better than the previous ones. You can also tell that there's been post-production on this render. One of the ways I can tell is just that these people are not from the Enscape asset library, and they have kind of a blurry motion effect on them. I also like the detail that you did here with the bike fallen over and the ball. It just creates kind of a story on the render. So what I would say for this render, to me it's almost perfect. The vegetation is very well done, the landscape is very well done. Maybe I would add some lighting, like exterior lighting, little poles for the pathway, but obviously that's not necessary. That's just a personal preference. I think you're using the Enscape Sky, which doesn't look too bad, but I would definitely try out an HDRI because it always has more natural lighting. So try to switch that out with an HDRI. And the thing that stands out to me the most is the sun intensity. I know that you tried to maybe picture the setting as a lot of light and dynamic and stuff like that, but I would definitely try to tone down the sun intensity because it's too high and it's just making the white too burnt out in a way. If you, just as a quick tip, you obviously know this if you've seen my videos before, you can try out going to the visual settings, entering on light mode. So in the first tab of the visual settings, you have the mode you can select, which is default set to none, and you can switch that out for light view, and that would definitely tell you that this part right here and this part right here and this part right here are way too lit up. Another variable that you can change if you don't want to change the sun intensity is maybe tone down the whites and maybe put them a bit on the gray side so they don't look too burned out as this one. But yeah, other than that, it looks great. The vegetation looks great. One thing that I always question is I don't really like these pink flower models in the Enscape asset library. I think I've used them in some renders, but I don't really like to use them that often. So yeah. Alright, so yeah, this is one of the better renderings of this batch that we have right here. Alright, so now we're back onto another interior rendering. This is a kitchen. And first glance, the render just looks boring. It doesn't have any depth and it doesn't have any main source of lighting. It's just dull in a sense, yeah. So one thing that I noticed in terms of modeling is that in the part right here where the cable of the pendants connects to the ceiling, there's usually a part that connects the pendants to the ceiling. I would model that. It's pretty easy. Just makes the image a bit more realistic. It's just an extra detail. Also the handle on the refrigerator, I think I'd make that metallic and turn off the roughness on it because it just looks flat as of now, as well as the cabinets and everything like that. So I would also tone down the wood grains on this one because they're just coming off too harsh, or I would try to make them more reflective depending on how you want to set up the lighting. So what I would do here to set up the lighting is either try it with the default Enscape Sun if that's easier for you, but obviously I always prefer to use spotlights for to mimic the sun. So I would do some spotlights in the outside right here that would come in, and obviously the shadows would be on this side for the cabinets and all of that. Something else that I noticed is that these chairs right here look very uncomfortably put because there's no way you can sit there and then you have to go back with the chair, and then you cannot put your arms anywhere to rest or to eat. So there's no leg room on these chairs, but even if there was leg room, I would definitely suggest you to use some randomization on the chairs so they don't look like perfectly and artificially put. So I would just rotate them a bit, um, on the sides or something like that. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next rendering now. I'm really interested to see after these few comments that I make on your renders. Feel free to send them over to my email, and just so I can check the progress and how it's different. So I will try to put the best ones on my social media, and let's see what kind of results we get. All right, so this one is another interior rendering. So this one is a little bit better than the last one in terms of lighting. So there's some warmth coming from the outside in terms of the sun and stuff like that, but obviously it still has some work to do in terms of lighting and modeling and all of that. First thing that I would suggest is to add a trim alongside the flooring. Obviously this is not necessary, but usually it's recommended by at least by the clients that I work with. This would add some details, and it just gives better finishing. Something else that I would also recommend is to add a rug or a carpet here. This would also break the monotony of the flooring. It just looks very dull as of now, and that will make it more colorful. So try to combine it with the different colors that you're using in the image. Yeah, so other than that, just try to make it look more dynamic. Turn on the light over here maybe, because it's just too dark of a space to work. This is like kind of a workspace for architects, I guess, and just the space is just too dark to work on. Try to turn on the table lamp right here, and maybe add some spotlights and stuff like that. So maybe also add some displacement maps on the walls, because I can tell that you tried to put on some plaster that has some depth into it, which is nice, but try to tone down the roughness or turn on a roughness map or bump map or anything like that on this one as well. The modeling of the bed looks fine. I mean, the models are alright quality. They're not the highest quality, but they're alright. Something else that I noticed is this right here is probably a PC, I think, but it's hard to guess it. It's just kind of confusing for someone who's seeing the room for the first time. And maybe the angle of the composition is just too wide and there's too much information to gather. So maybe try to do render where's vertical aspect ratio and just capture this part of the render first, and then you can do a separate render for this side of the room and stuff like that. I'll continue on the next render. This is pretty much it for this one. It's funny because most of the renders that I'm receiving, the better ones are exterior renders, and the ones in the interior are kind of lacking. But Enscape does a lot better in interior renders than exterior renders, in my opinion. One of the reasons, I'm just going to open the previous exterior render that we had on previously. One of the reasons is some of the vegetation models are not high quality enough from Enscape, and Enscape competitors obviously do a better job on that. And the Enscape grass is not the best. It's obviously, it needs a lot of work, and it hasn't been updated in so long from Enscape. I definitely think it needs updates to look better, at least to be able to compare it to other rendering engines out there. But yeah, sometimes the lighting is not very consistent on the exterior because of how the HDRI matches the Enscape sun and all of that. So yeah. Interiors are just way more consistent in Enscape because you can use the fake lighting, as I call it, and you're not too reliant on the default Enscape settings and all of that. So yeah. Also, one thing that I'm thinking that Enscape definitely needs to implement is the ability to add multiple maps onto materials. Like, we need to have a normal map, a bump map, and a displacement map at the same time for the same material, and right now we're just not able to do that. So yeah. All right, so this next one is a bathroom rendering. as I said before, I'm not a fan of these kind of designs. To me, they're just too tacky, and as soon as I see a design like this, I can point it out that it's probably coming from, again, from a third world country or something like that, because it's just too much clutter and too much information. I myself like simpler designs or more modern design. So first thing that I can notice is that the lighting is very warm. It almost makes it look like a sauna and not a bathroom. Um, First thing that I notice regarding the lighting is that the indirect lighting is on over here, but then it's not continuing. It's probably a misplacement of the line lights. Other than that, a big thing that I notice immediately is that the tile material repeats itself. So it's in the same direction, it has the same size and all that. So I would definitely try to tweak that in SketchUp or whatever native modeling software you're using with UV mapping or something similar to that. So yeah, these are the two big things, probably the lighting and the tiles right here, which are making the image just way too cluttered. And try to make the lighting a bit more colder in a sense. Another thing is that this part right here looks very confusing in first glance. So there's reflections, you can tell there's glass, and then you can tell there's a shower behind, and all of that. But what I think is happening here, there's a glass door, and just to make it look better and just not as confusing, I would definitely add some metal profiles over here and over here where the door opens, or metal profiles where the glass connects with the flooring, or with the wall over here. It's just extra details that just give more context to the whole render and would just make the render a bit better. The window frames here look a bit fake in a sense. I'm not sure if they have enough reflection, and there's definitely should be some light coming from the outside as well. I know it's hard to combine the interior artificial lighting with the natural outdoor lighting sometimes in Enscape, but it's definitely doable. So yeah, with these few things, I think this render can turn out well. The models that are used are quite well, except for obviously the glass wall that not wall, but the glass doors that we talked about earlier. Alright, so this will be the final render of this live stream, and it's an exterior render. So this one is not as good as the previous exterior renders that we checked out. So this one has a very boring landscape. It's just basically all pavement across everything, a boring fence and hedges all around. So what I would do here is just do a pathway, maybe where you're gonna walk, add some grass, add some flowers, trees, or just try to make the landscape better in general. I think you're also using 3-point perspective, which I would suggest to switch to 2 points perspective to make the image and the lines in 90 degrees, something like this. It just makes the image look much better. I talk extensively regarding the 2-point and 3-point perspective in my previous videos. Something else that I like to notice and point out is the background that you're using. I think it's a default Enscape background, and it's just not as realistic as using an HDRI, which would at the same time fix your issues with the sky and the lighting, and as well with the background. I'm also always suggesting to use HDRIs in your exterior renders, because 9 times out of 10 they will look better than the default Enscape sky. Something else is that, as you can see, the trees lost resolution there in the back, so maybe try to get them a little closer. I know you're probably trying to hide the horizon, but again, that would also fix the problem. The HDRI would fix the problem with that as well. Try to turn off the saturation on this render a bit and tone down the sun intensity. I think that would make the lighting appear just better overall in the render, and it would just give a better mood on this exterior render. Yeah, also the fencing, maybe try to switch that out. maybe just do something more basic with some ivy hanging on it and stuff like that. The materials don't look very realistic. I think they look very flat, especially this wood material right here. Add some bump maps, add some displacement maps or normal maps. Also would be good to do some reflections on them as well. So yeah, if this is probably metal. So go to the material editor, and what I would do is just turn on the metal part of the settings and tone down the roughness, so they are more reflective and just overall more realistic. Alright, so other than this, I don't have much else to say regarding these renders. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat, and in the meantime, maybe we can review more renders in that you can send over in the email, as you can see in the bottom part of the live stream. I'm gonna go back to this screen. Meanwhile, I finalize this rendering review live stream. I'm gonna try to do these more often, obviously, but throughout the week I'm mostly working on rendering projects, and it's hard to find time for live streaming. But as you can see, I try to make time on a Sunday because I just want to practice a bit more often and just get better at it. Give you more one-on-one tips and just answer some of the questions that are more popular in my comment section and all of that. What I also want to do next week is I'm going to try and do a full workflow live stream for an exterior render that I'm planning to do. So make sure to stay tuned on all my social media, because I will definitely announce it a bit earlier. And yeah, so I think the audio was working well because I checked it on my phone as well, and some of you talked on the chat regarding it, so yeah, it probably worked fine. Alright, so if you don't have any questions, I will be ending the live stream. If you joined later than when we began, you can replay it on as a video, so make sure to replay it as a video and to check out all the tips I did for all the renders. I will definitely be uploading another video this week, which will be very good and will have a lot of insight on interior scenes in Enscape, especially lighting, because that is what most of you request. So yeah, thank you very much for joining, and again, I want to thank you for joining on a Sunday, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great weekend.